journey in developing the MENA Women's Inclusion Indices. I am Mariam Omar, proudly serving as a research associate for SAWI's project at Telfer School of Management, University of Ottawa. Today marks a crucial step in SAWI's progress as we delve further into understanding women's inclusion in the MENA region workplaces. Our team's dedication over the past 4 years has been inspiring. Their relentless drive, innovative thinking, and skilled expertise have been pivotal in shaping SAWI's future. This event is more than a mere presentation. It is a celebration of our collective hard work and a preview into the transformative impact of SAWI. Please allow me to guide you through some important logistical details for our session. For interpretation into Arabic or French, you can access this service via interpretation button on Zoom as shown on the screen. We will be covering our MENA region's findings, focusing mainly on these 4 sectors: education, healthcare, STEM, and financial service. So please update your Zoom name with your preferred language and sector, and also please name yourself using the name you used to register into the event. We will also insert an example on how to do so in the chat. While your microphones will be muted to maintain order, we warmly encourage you to share your questions through the chat or YouTube comments. Our team will be actively monitoring both to address your queries either during or after our session. To access the slides for today, please scan this QR code. A link to download them will also be pasted in the chat. Should you need any technical assistance, please feel free to reach out through the chat or by emailing us. Toward the end of this session, we would appreciate if you could please enable your cameras for a group photo to capture the essence of our gathering. And a final note, we will be providing a certificate of attendance for participants who attended the event over 2 days, so please watch out for an email in the upcoming 2 weeks. Anticipate an enlightening experience as we reveal the achievements of our joint efforts. Your presence and participation are greatly appreciated, and I thank you once again for being part of this remarkable journey. I am now extremely honored to introduce Professor Charlotte Karam, a visionary and pivotal figure in SAWI initiative. Charlotte is a tenured professor at the Telfer School of Management and a holder of Ian Telfer Professorship in Inclusive HR Systems. She's also a senior international fellow at Asfari Institute for Civil Society and Citizenship, American University of Beirut. We are particularly proud to have Charlotte as our primary investigator at SAWI, where her expertise and leadership continue to drive our project forward. With immense respect and admiration, I welcome Professor Karam to the stage. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mariam, and I'm very proud and happy to be here today. I want to start by, on behalf of the SAWI team and on behalf of the American University of Beirut and the Telfer School of Management at the University of Ottawa, and our co-PIs, as many of you saw yesterday, but pictured here, as well as our fantastic team, SAWI team in Beirut and in Ottawa, and our remarkable local country partners around the region, it gives me great pleasure to welcome you once again today to this second day of our Insight event. Today, we share the results of the Lived Experience Index. Many of us call it the LE Index. So thank you all for rejoining us, and thank you for honoring us with your presence at this event, especially during these ongoing, very difficult times. This work was made possible through generous funding from the Middle East Partnership Initiative at the U.S. Department of State, and we are grateful to the funder for not only their financial support, but also their great partnership of the MEPI DC team and the MEPI Beirut teams throughout our work and as our work continues. I want to set the agenda for today, very similar to the agenda that we had yesterday. We're going to start with a shorter overview of the index and what we're doing in terms of positioning the LE index with the KIP index. We will then invite our fantastic keynote speaker, Dr. Lin Munzir, to take the stage, and then we will hand over to our 2 core facilitators who will dive into the results of the Lived Experience Index, and then again we'll have the time to break into breakout rooms to have sector insight discussions. So very exciting agenda and very packed. So as we delve into today's session, let's connect the dots between our insightful discussion of KIP yesterday and the focal point of today, the Lived Experience Index. So yesterday, we introduced the KIP Index, which is a trailblazing tool that tracks local employer policies and practices specifically tailored to the recruitment, the retention, and the promotion of women within the MENA region's diverse sectors. We also, if you remember, we explored regional trends and sector-based patterns at the dimension and the subdimension level. Today, we spotlight the Lived Experience Index, which is an integral counterpart to the KIP Index. Although they're independent, they very much speak to one another. While the KIP Index provides us with an overview of employer practices, the LE Index does the very important work of bringing to light the personal narratives, the real on-ground experiences of women working within the region, within current workplaces across the region. These indices are part of SAWI's mission to support and accelerate women's inclusion. They embody our commitment to fostering feminist and inclusive models that amplify the possibilities of dignified work for women. Together, the two indices provide a more holistic perspective. It's really crucial to recognize that to paint a complete picture of inclusive workplaces, we cannot just survey employers. It's extremely important to capture the experiences of the women themselves from their own voices. Women's voices are critical and must be central to any strategic way forward. This is important to respond to the data deficit and to not just ask managers and organizers and decision makers. They're not the only ones that should be asked, but women need to be asked themselves. Elevating and learning from the women themselves is a core part of what drives the LE Index, where the KIP Index serves as a reflection of employer efforts, revealing what policies and practices have been put in place. The LE Index sheds light on how these policies and practices are experienced in the day-to-day lives of women, providing a ground-level perspective. So SAWI's dual approach in these indices enables a comprehensive understanding of workplace dynamics, something that we believe is extremely important for any way forward. To be successful, therefore, we believe that the strategies for building more women-inclusive workplaces must have, again, I repeat, I know, but it's extremely important, women voices at the core of the change process. The LE Index, as you'll see from Dr. Fida Afuni, Dr. Yasmin Makerim, the LE Index allows women's voices to be heard through measuring different women's experiences within local organization. This is why we have invited you here yet again today to share with you the second iteration of our efforts to gather local data, local voices, measuring the experiences of women's recruitment, retention, and promotion in the region. As a reminder, this elevation of women's voices is central to our approach at the SAWI Project, which is a feminist participatory action research model. It is evidence-based, it is participatory, it is feminist because it focuses on improving the lives and livelihood of women today in the workplace, and it is action-oriented because our aim is to partner with employers to change structures. So with that, I will take a few moments to introduce Dr. Lynn Munzir, and it is my absolute pleasure to do so. Dr. Lynn Munzir, whose dedication and work have carved out a significant pathway toward gender equality in the MENA region. Dr. Munzir stands at the forefront of social change as gender equality professional, consultant, instructor, and social entrepreneur. As the current Associate Director of the WLN Fellowship at the Atlantic Council, Lynn continues to shape influential policy and initiatives. Her time as a lead research analyst at the Wilson Center Middle East Program saw her identifying critical policy gaps that hinder women's economic participation and entrepreneurship in the MENA, reflecting her deep understanding of the region's socioeconomic landscape. Lynn's role as a global fellow at the Wilson Center further emphasizes her standing as a thought leader in the field. Her entrepreneurial spirit led her to establish Gen Dev Consulting, through which she has empowered organizations to create opportunities for women's economic empowerment in the MENA. Her collaborative efforts with notable entities like Google Developer Group and the University of Maryland, among others, showcase her versatility and commitment to practical empowerment through education and through skill development. So we are very excited to have a like-minded scholar and activist and policy advisor with us here today. Dr. Munzir, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Sorry, I truly appreciate this opportunity, and I'm sorry if the whole conversation will start a bit dark, but it will get better. So I just want to start by saying, I don't know if you know the number 152 years. It is 152 years. That's how long the World Economic Forum Global Gender Report estimates it will take women in the region to achieve gender equality at the current rate that we're going through. Let me explain what I mean by that and what it means for Arab women and girls. So even if we do everything right, like study hard, go to school, good schools, get good jobs, start a business, most of us will not achieve the same right and privileges and financial privileges and rewards as men. Of course, this is a massive systemic issue that we need to address socially, culturally, politically, legally, and economically. Yes, I've been working for a while, especially on women's issue, and I wish I had answers to addressing all these challenges and how to create a true gender equal Arab world. But I don't have the answers. For the past 15 years, I've spent my time trying to figure this out and how to help Arab women and how can we help them progress economically. So why economically? Because historically, increased economic and financial power has been a catalyst for a broader social change and greater equality. We go back to the women liberation movement that happened in the West in the 1960s. For example, it was due in part to the fact that many women started working in factories during World War II and then joined the regular workforce, which led to a lot of campaigns, which led to equal pay for equal work, which led to the whole women liberation movement. So that's why I would like to speak. This is what I would like to speak to you today. There's two elements. Why we need to drastically change and increase female economic participation and financial inclusion for Arab women. Two, both the big changes that our society need to make and the smaller step that we as individuals can make will help improve women's lives economically. So first I'll take a step back and let's break down the problem with some specific example of how this issue spans culture, politics, and legal systems. Let's start with the fact that there is a massive gap in our region between female educational achievement and employment opportunity. Across the region, we have more women obtaining university degrees than men, a lot more. Women, they outnumber men in Arab university by 108%, okay? Yet, according to the World Bank, we have the lowest rate of female labor force participation. Only 1/5 of the Arab workforce is female. There are countries that has more, some countries has less. For example, female labor force participation in Iraq is 11% compared to 55% in the UAE. However, the overall, women are systematically disadvantaged for taking part in the workforce across the region. One reason for this discrimination is like the discrimination hiring practices. Women are still expected to fill those supporting roles. As well, we have unequal pay for equal work. Arab women are right to wonder why they should work a job and be paid only 1/3 or even half or what men make. To top it all off, a majority of women who work in the Arab world, they report that they have faced workplace, even and sexual harassment. Basically, we don't make it appealing for women who are graduating from these wonderful universities to embark on a meaningful journey, on a meaningful career. Additionally, we have the legal systems. They, as you may know, they tend to favor men and discredit women who try to address workplace discrimination or even harassment through actual courts. Certain countries even legally restricted access to certain jobs, restricted women from accessing certain jobs. I'll tell you, for example, I'm Lebanese. So in Lebanon, we have a law that bans women from working in several industries that men usually have decided that is too difficult or hazardous for women. We also can't ignore the more subtle cultural forces that help perpetuate these systems. I'll give you an example. From the time we were little, I think you can connect to this. We've been told that our primary role as women, as girls, is to be caregivers, that we should prioritize our family responsibilities, whether as wives, as sisters, as mothers, above everything else. It's also commonly believed that working woman, and like a woman who's working and creating her own life, is kind of inappropriate. Yes, it is changing, but the view is still there. Several years ago, it's one of the examples, the World Bank surveyed in Jordan, I think it was in 2018, and they found that both men and women, they generally believe it was inappropriate for women and men to work side by side. Additionally, approximately 70% of the respondents, they agreed that it was socially unacceptable for women to work past 5 p.m. It highlights the challenges women keeps facing in balancing professional aspiration and societal expectations. Another survey in Jordan, it showed that most employers, they prefer to employ men to avoid offering maternity leaves, for example. And there's nothing to stop that. Their law doesn't protect women. However, the economic implications are so significant that we cannot just ignore this. The research suggests that equalizing female and male employment rate, it could boost the GDP, the region's GDP by 57%. That is $2 trillion increase. That's not a small number. As I mentioned earlier, there are big things that need to be done by government and private sector, both of them together, to improve economic equality in our region and foster things like an inclusive and equitable work environment. So what can be done? I'll give you 5 elements. First, reforming existing laws to support women's economic participation. It's critical to amend discriminatory laws and practices to pave the way for gender equality. That's how it starts. 2, investing in women's education and skill development. So we need targeted programs that are needed to bridge the gap between the education and employment opportunities. Especially now we have AI, we have tech industry, we need to bridge that gap. 3, creating safe and inclusive work environment, implementing strict anti-harassment policies, and establish actual mechanism for reporting and addressing these complaints. There are a lot of anti-harassment policies across the Arab world, but their implementation are unavailable. There is no support there, so they go wasted. 4, promoting female leadership and representation. We should be setting targets for women's representation in leadership, in politics, because they will bring the change. 5, developing clear metrics for progress. I am a researcher and I face this all the time, lack of data. So collecting data and supporting initiatives and programs like SAWI can provide really valuable insights for policy and program development. Changing these policy, the practices, and the perception is essential for recognizing women's invaluable contribution to economies and societies. I also mentioned the part of the personal contribution, on a personal level contribute. If you are part of an organization or a company, I want you to actively hire women, support them, mentor them, encourage their growth, and genuinely listen to their ideas and concerns. My experience working with hundreds of Arab women has reinforced this crucial need for an enabling environment and a positive impact of having supportive colleagues and mentors. These elements are not just beneficial, they are essential for empowering women and facilitating their success in the workplace. Thank you so much for having me here, and I hope that is beneficial, and happy to answer any question at any point. Thank you, Charlotte.
Thank you so much. It was, really well, like painting a picture, a really well painted picture of feeling the stark reality and sharing the statistics. Thank you so much, Dr. Munzir. It's a pleasure to hear you. And there will be time if there's any questions, and you can write them in the chat, and we'll see if there's time at the end to kind of discuss, or we can also discuss them in the breakout rooms. But to get to the KIP index, or sorry, the LE index, it gives me great pleasure to introduce our two investigators on the SAWI project, our phenomenal two parts of our phenomenal team. Dr. Fida Afuni, who is an associate professor of human resource management at the Al School of Business, and an associate provost in the provost office at the American University of Beirut, a longstanding friend and a feminist activist. Also, Dr. Yasmin Makerem, who is an assistant professor of human resource development at the SAWI School of Business at the American University of Beirut, an investigator on the SAWI project, and also a feminist activist and a longstanding friend. Over to you.
Thank you, Charlotte. I'm still processing what Dr. Munzir said. Very inspiring speech, and I think she described very well, the comprehensive picture for supporting women's economic participation, from revising the laws to investing in women's education. But most importantly, and what we are focusing on here in the SAWI project, is creating a safe and inclusive work environment. And I also liked her take on promoting women's leadership and representation by developing clear metrics. And I think this circles back to what you said, Charlotte, at the beginning, that for the data deficit. So I think one of the main objectives that we're trying to do in the SAWI project, whether in the KIP index or in the LE index, is to have data, because if you can't measure it, you cannot change it. Yesterday, there have been great presentation about the KIP index, which captures the results of the surveys that happened with employers and focused on the employers, what they're doing in terms of recruitment, retention, and promotion. Today, we're shifting towards my favorite part of the project, which is women's lived experiences, because as Charlotte mentioned at the beginning, women's voices are at the core of the change process. So it's very important for us to see what the employers are doing, but also to see what the women are experiencing, and then have, a comprehensive view and see where there are matches, mismatches, what can we learn from that, and how we can improve women's lived experiences in the workplace. So we have been collecting data since 2017. So basically, we completed 2 waves of data collection. The first wave started and collected data for the years 2017 and 18. The second wave, 2019 and 20. And we're very excited that we have started the collection a few months ago of the third wave. And here I would really like to thank our country partners for their great partnership, and for believing in SAWI, and for helping us in collecting very high quality and reliable data. So we wouldn't have been able to present this set of data without our country partners. So thank you. So before we delve further into the results, I would like to share, maybe have a poll to see your perspective. Mariam, if you can launch the poll. So please choose true or false with regards to the following statement. Women employees from the MENA region have reported to SAWI that they have seen an improvement in their organization's retention efforts between 2017-18, so the first wave, and the second wave of 2019-2020. So we're going to give you a few seconds to complete the poll. Mariam, I think we can show the results. I don't see much progress yet. Maybe, yes, 5 seconds and we can show the results. Okay, so as you can see here, the majority is optimistic. So we see that 82% believe that this is true and 18% believe that this is wrong. I'm gonna keep the suspense. I'm not gonna tell you if it's true or wrong. And then with my colleague Yasmin, we will delve into the details of the results. So just to keep you on your toes for a couple of minutes. So for those of you who attended yesterday's presentation, this might seem redundant, but I'm gonna go over it because this is very important. So to explain a little bit our methodology, so we focus on the SAWI project on 4 sectors: education, healthcare, STEM, and financial services. And we collected data in those 9 countries: Tunisia, Lebanon, Morocco, Algeria, Jordan, Bahrain, Libya, Iraq, and Kuwait. And what's nice about the index, whether we're talking about the KIP or the LE index, is that it allows us to see the results from either a country perspective, but also from a sector perspective and from a region perspective. So for example, I can compare how the STEM sector in Lebanon compares to the STEM sector in Algeria or Jordan, or I can compare how my country in general compares to other countries in terms of the overall index. For those of you who are interested in learning more about our methodology, you can flash the QR code here, scan it, and then you will be directed to a document that explains in detail the methodology that we have adopted. Again, so I want to explain a little bit the index. So the LE index, similar to the KIP index, has 3 dimensions: recruitment, retention, and promotion. And within each dimension, we have indicators, and specifically, we have 4 indicators. So as you can see here, we have an indicator on the differential treatment, educational alignment, formality in recruitment, and formality in selection within recruitment. So how does this work? Usually we have the interview protocol that our team has really worked hard on revising, and also with the support of our country partners and their input to write the questions in a way that allow us to then quantify the results and measure them along these dimensions. And this will make more sense to you when we show the results. You might see those sub-dimensions. In the retention, we have anti-harassment policies, differential treatment, willingness to report harassment, and work-life balance. So those are under retention. And under promotion, we have access to promotions, access to training, differential treatment, and transparency. So this might seem a bit, dry for you. So we will, in the next slide, we will play a video that shows Sarah's story throughout, her employment journey that will help you see into action the different dimensions and sub-dimensions of our index.
يعكس مؤشر التجربة الحياتية أصوات النساء وتجاربهن الوظيفية في الاقتصاد الرسمي. دعونا نتابع سارة من خلال مسيرتها المهنية ونستكشف الأبعاد التي تعكس تجربتها في مكان العمل.
Because I can't see the video. I see it blank. Were you able to see it?
No, we can't see
we
the
can't.
video.
We can't.
But we
let
can
me
hear
try.
it.
Yeah, let me try again. Sorry about that. I will just share it again without maybe full screen. No.
No, let me try for them.
Yes.
See if it works. 1 second. Sorry for the technical difficulty, but I'm sure everyone after COVID is used to technical difficulties. Can you see the slide?
Yes.
Let's try it. Okay.
يعكس مؤشر التجربة الحياتية أصوات النساء وتجاربهن الوظيفية في الاقتصاد الرسمي. دعونا نتابع سارة من خلال مسيرتها المهنية ونستكشف الأبعاد التي تعكس تجربتها في مكان العمل وفقا لمؤشر التجربة الحياتية. تبدأ سارة رحلتها المهنية بمرحلة التوظيف، بدءا بالقنوات غير الرسمية مثل الكلام الشفهي، وصولا إلى قنوات أخرى أكثر رسمية مثل منصات التوظيف المهنية. ثم تنتقل سارة لنقطة التوافق التعليمي، حيث يتم تعيينها في مناصب لا تناسب خلفيتها وخبرتها. تليها بعد ذلك مرحلة الاختيار. بهذه المرحلة تمر سارة بعمليات تقييم تتراوح ما بين تقييمات غير منظمة وذاتية إلى أخرى رسمية وموضوعية. تترك كل مرحلة بصمة على رحلة سارة، وقد يتضمن هذا مواجهة التمييز والتفضيل. أثناء الشروع في استكشاف تجاربها في مرحلة الاستبقاء الوظيفي، تواجه سارة سلسلة من الأبعاد التي تحدد بيئتها المهنية. أولا، هذه الأبعاد هي وجود أو عدم وجود سياسات أو آليات رسمية من شأنها أن تضمن الحفاظ على التوازن المناسب بين بيئة العمل والحياة. وثانياً، وجود أو غياب السياسات أو الآليات الرسمية التي من شأنها حمايتها من التحرش. وبغض النظر عن وجود هذه السياسات، هنالك أيضاً مسألة ما إذا كانت سارة تثق في الآليات بدرجة كافية لتكون على استعداد للإبلاغ عن حالات التحرش. تترك هذه المرحلة أيضاً بصمة على رحلة سارة، فقد تواجه معاملة مختلفة عن نظرائها الذكور في المنظمة. تنتقل سارة أيضاً بين سلسلة من الأبعاد التي تؤثر بشكل عميق على مسارها الوظيفي وتقدمها في المنظمة، بدءاً من الوصول إلى الترقيات وكذلك الوصول إلى فرص التدريب. هذه الفرص التدريبية قد لا تكون متاحة، وفي حال توفرها قد لا تمنح بالتساوي لجميع الموظفين. قد يشوب هذه العملية أيضاً عدم الشفافية والوضوح، وهنا تعود المعاملة التمييزية إلى المعادلة، بدءاً من التفضيل بين الموظفين ووصولاً إلى ممارسات الترقية الشاملة للنساء. رحلة سارة هي شاهد على تعقيدات مكان العمل. باستخدام مؤشر الخبرة الحياتية، يمكن لمديري الموارد البشرية وصناع القرار رسم مسار نحو التغيير للأفضل، وضمان أن تتميز الرحلة الوظيفية لكل امرأة بالكرامة والمساواة. حان الوقت الآن لإجراء التغيير، وعلينا جميعا المشاركة في مؤشر الخبرة الحياتية.
Great. So thank you for the team for the wonderful video. I think it embodies very well the spirit of the index and what we're trying to do in order to improve women's lived experience throughout the recruitment, promotion, and retention process. So who are these women that we're talking about in our index? So here on the slide, we see the demographics on the left-hand side of the demographics of the women in time one. So the 2017-18 data, and on the right-hand side, we see the demographics of the 2019-2020 data. And we can see that in the second iteration, we tried as much as possible to balance more between the different sectors that we have. So we have a more balanced distribution. And also we have, 46% of women are married, 92 have university degree, and 57% are management. I just want to note that in the third iteration, we were very mindful of intersectionality and of trying to diversify as much as possible the sample in terms of geographical coverage and in terms of where the woman is within the organizational levels, so management, non-management, etc., to hopefully capture as much as possible the variety of experiences of the women in our sample. So that's an introduction overall about the index and its dimensions and the demographics. And now I'm gonna turn it to my colleague to guide us through the findings of the regional trends of the index. Yasmin, over to you.
Thank you very much, Fida, for really setting the stage regarding the LE index. I could already see that there's a lot of questions, a lot of discussion that is going on in that chat based on what has been discussed so far from Dr. Munzer's, your speech, and Fida, your introduction, and I hope we will have the chance to actually go over them. So what I'll be sharing next are some of the regional trends before I go into more depth with regards to the sector level trends. If we can move the slide, please.
Yes.
Thank you. So when we are looking at the regional trends, and especially if we take a more of an bird's view with respect to what has been going on between the first iteration of data collection and data analysis and then the second iteration, we can see that there has been an improvement of women's perception regarding RRP policies and practices across organizations, across all of the sectors that we collected the data from, with an increase of 3.6 points from T1 to T2. But specifically, if we look about what caused that particular increase, what really pulled the score up, we really can focus on the retention dimension. The retention dimension between the first and the second iteration increased by 13.2 points. This is very telling. This is really giving us an insight that women's perception around particular retention policies and practices in their organization was enhanced, and that really drove the score up. We can also see that there has been slight increase in terms of recruitment, the recruitment dimension. But what is really very telling and really can help us understand where most of our efforts maybe should be concerted is around the promotion dimension. The promotion dimension did really pull the score down. In the next slide, I'll be discussing more why was that the case. But this is also for us a moment to think that improvement can happen across all of these three dimensions. But it's interesting to be able to better understand what is really pulling the score up and what really pulled the score down in these two time differences. So if you look at the regional trends and building up on what I've just mentioned previously, we can notice that there has been a very slight improvement or slight increase with respect to more formal selection processes at the recruitment level and with slightly less discriminatory recruitment processes. This could also explain the slight increase in the recruitment dimension. We have also noticed that there has been a slightly higher willingness to report on harassment. However, what is really very telling and really links back to the increased pull in the retention dimension is the significant increase in the reported presence of informal and formal work-life balance policies across these sectors and across these organizations. So for a lot of the women perceived that the presence of these formal and informal work-life balance policies really had an impact on their career and on their retention within their particular occupations. What is very important and what really tells us more about the differentiation between these two particular iterations is the significant decrease in access to promotions. So a lot of these women actually did note, did voice, did share their own experience about how promotional opportunities were fairly limited and how did that impact, their perception or their experience within their occupations. So with that, what will be interesting now is for us to hear the stories of several of these women or several insights of these women in the upcoming video that will also walk us through the three particular dimensions while hearing about their own experiences across the various sectors that they were employed in.
Thank you, Yasmin. Before I play the video, I just want to circle back to the poll and say that most of the people were right, that from T1 to T2, the most significant increase in the index was on the retention dimension. So, well seen.
Mon recrutement s'est bien déroulé, avec des entretiens en personne et un test psychotechnique. C'était pro, la communication était formelle.
Pour moi, l'entretien était avec un groupe varié d'experts évaluant nos compétences en enseignement et informatique. Tout était bien organisé, mettant l'accent sur l'éducation et l'expertise. Est-ce que l'une de vous a-t-elle ressenti de la discrimination lors du recrutement?
Je ne dirais pas que c'est de la discrimination, mais dans mon organisation, ils pensent que les femmes sont plus aptes à certains postes, comme les rôles de vente. Du coup, la plupart des projets commerciaux sont supervisés par des femmes.
D'après ce que j'ai vécu, les femmes rencontrent toujours des défis supplémentaires. On nous pose des questions personnelles, surtout sur la grossesse. Qu'est-ce que la grossesse a à voir avec mes compétences pour le poste? On ne pose jamais ces questions à un homme. Et vous, comment ça se passe si vous voulez signaler du harcèlement au boulot en termes de politique anti-harcèlement sexuel?
Nous n'avons pas de procédure claire contre le harcèlement sexuel, mais je le signalerai à mon responsable, de préférence une femme dirigeante. Si cela m'arrivait, je signalerai, mais pas si cela arrivait à quelqu'un d'autre.
Je suis vraiment désolée d'apprendre cela seulement, mais je suis heureuse que tu tentes quand même de signaler. Avoir une politique anti-harcèlement sexuel est essentiel pour créer un environnement de travail sécurisé et inclusif, et cela encourage le signalement. Il est également important d'avoir des politiques, qu'elles soient formelles ou informelles, pour l'équilibre entre vie professionnelle et vie privée. Dans mon organisation, il n'y a pas de politique formelle, mais on a des congés maternité et une certaine flexibilité pour les urgences familiales.
Je pense que les politiques visant à équilibrer travail et vie personnelle sont cruciales, surtout pour les femmes, car nous jonglons avec beaucoup de choses, cuisine, garde d'enfants et carrière. Tout repose sur nos épaules. Personnellement, mon organisation n'a pas de politique formelle pour cet équilibre. Cependant, nous pouvons quitter le travail plus tôt pour nous occuper de nos familles. Mais cela ne suffit pas. Et les promotions? Quelles ont été vos expériences?
Je voulais une promotion, mais je ne l'ai pas obtenue. Nous n'avons pas de processus formel de promotion et les promotions ne sont pas courantes. À la place, l'alternative est de postuler pour un autre rôle. Être célibataire aide, mais si l'on est marié, cela pourrait être un obstacle.
L'accès aux promotions n'est pas simple. Si vous souhaitez progresser, vous devez demander. Nous transmettons nos demandes de promotion à notre directeur et espérons que tout ira pour le mieux. Tout est très formel et dépend de votre chance avec le directeur. Avoir des politiques et des opportunités de promotion formelles et inclusives m'encouragerait à postuler.
So I'm glad to see that the video spoke to most of the comments that were received in the slide about sexual harassment and the need, to have policies, but also the dynamics around, even if we have policies, women do not feel confident or don't trust the system to report. So I'm sure we will have a lot to discuss in more details in the breakout rooms at the end of the main room's presentation. So we've talked about the index overall, and how about now zooming into more details to see the sector trends across the region, and Yasmin can guide us through the main results.
Thank you for that. So when we are looking at a more sector level, what we notice, especially with regards to the LE index, is that, and especially if we are looking at the second iteration, we notice that there has been an improvement across all of the sectors from T1 to T2, as we've mentioned earlier. What strikes us the most is that across this improvement, the education sector ranks the highest, or is the better performing sector when it comes to women's own perception of RRP within the educational sector. When we are looking at the other sectors, we notice that there's a slight difference between them. We do notice that the financial services is more on the weaker side of performance with respect to the MENA average, with very slight differences between STEM and healthcare. And what's interesting and what we'll be discussing next is why is that the case? So we can unpack or better understand what is it exactly that really pulled down the averages for some of these sectors and what really pulled it up, for instance, with respect to education. So if we can move to the next slide. Thank you. So as I mentioned, with respect to the two between the best performing sector and the least performing sector as it relates to the LE MENA average index, we noticed that at the educational level, the index at the education level is higher than the MENA average. And if we look more closely about what is driving that increase, we really can highlight that it has been driven up due to the retention dimension, and specifically the non-differential treatment in that particular sector. Unlike what was going on in the financial services sector, what has been driving the score down and way below the MENA average is also at the promotion dimension, and it's mainly around the accessibility to promotion. And as we could see in the video, and we could listen to in the video, promotion, and as we discussed beforehand, promotion was a key differentiator in terms of what really pulled, in general, the index down. And when we look at the financial services, we have a better understanding that what really drove it down is the lack of accessibility to promotional opportunities for these particular women. So across that, when we look at the two other sectors, the sectors that fall in the middle, with them being also below the MENA average, we also note that the major driver down for these two particular sectors is also access to promotion. So a lot of the women shared from their own experiences that they really faced a lot of difficulties accessing promotion in these particular two sectors. And it will be very interesting that now, hopefully in the breakout rooms, we will be able to unpack that even further to understand why was that the case? Why did the women experience that? So Fida, maybe if you want, you can give us a bit of an insight of what some of the patterns that we've noticed across the three dimensions and across all of the four sectors that we were able to collect the data from.
Yeah, thank you, Yasmin. So I think this is a very nice slide because it really provides a detailed view on how each sector is ranking in relation to recruitment, promotion, and retention. So if we look at the left-hand side, we see that, for example, the average score on recruitment across sectors is 67.7. And you see that STEM scored 67.7 on the average, while the others are above the average. Promotion, the average across all sectors is 54.3, and we see that STEM again scores the lowest, slightly on the average, while other sectors score high. And in retention, we see that the worst sector is healthcare. If you remember yesterday, we had a similar slide to see how the sectors rank on the KIP index. And for the KIP index, it was a clean cut where STEM was scoring the lowest on all dimensions, followed by financial services, followed by healthcare and education. Here we see it's not really a clear cut. What's common with KIP index is that education scores the highest, while STEM doesn't score the lowest on all the dimensions, but healthcare scores the lowest on retention. And I think it's also important to keep in mind that these are relative scores. It doesn't mean that education is doing great. It means that relative to other sectors, it's doing better. So there's a room for improvement across all sectors, but I think there is an urgent need to work on more inclusive practices, especially on the sectors that are scoring around the average or slightly below the average. And, we might be wondering what are, some of the issues that are driving the scores up or down in each sector. And maybe you might be asking, how do countries, score on those? We don't want to provide a lot of information because we want to keep the details in the breakout sessions. However, we're going to show you maybe in the next slide an idea about, how things are looking. So if we look at the financial services sector, we see that the average score on the LE index is 64.35. So that's the average in this sector. And we see how each country score on the sector in particular. So we see that some countries are scoring better than others. And if we, try to see what is driving the score up, for example, if we take Lebanon, which has a high score, again, recruitment and retention are driving it up. In particular, within recruitment, it's the education alignment and the formality in selections, which are two sub-dimensions in the recruitment dimension. We have the anti-harassment policies and the non-differential treatment and the willingness to report harassment, which are under the retention dimension. So we see that these are specifically the items that are driving the score of Lebanon up. In contrast, if we look at Bahrain, we see that formality in recruitment and access to promotions are what are driving the scores down. Again, these are just to give you an idea about the performance. We have a similar one for STEM, where you see that the average here on the bottom is 64.6, and we see that there is a variety of scores on the different countries. If you want to know what exactly is driving things up or down, you need to join our breakout room to talk more about it. Similarly, here you can see the map of the healthcare average. So while the total score is 64.96, across the countries, we see that there's also a disparity of scores across countries. And I really like this sectorial view or sector-based approach, because here it really allows each country to know where they are faring better than others. And again, it's not a competition across countries. The purpose here is really to put the finger on what is not working. So if we take a particular country, which sector is really not performing well, and then zooming in at the dimensions, what exactly is driving the score down? Of course, the objective is to then develop policies and measures to make sure that things look better for women and they have an improved lived experience. Some of the buzzwords we've been hearing is dignified work, meaningful work. So a lot of work needs to be done. And finally, we have the education sector, which is the best scoring sector on the LE index with an average of 70.95 across countries. And again, we see disparities across the countries on that score. And if we see what's driving the score up in Iraq, retention dimension is the one that's driving the overall score up. And specifically the non-differential treatment in the workplace and the presence of anti-harassment policies. And if you look what is driving the score down in Lebanon, promotion really is very low in the education sector. And we see that access to promotions is one of the lowest, and transparency also, is low. And so here, maybe we can try to reflect together, Yasmin, on what maybe can explain this shift from T1 to T2, whether the positive shifts, most of the shifts are positive, but, what could be leading to an improvement on that. So I know that you've worked a lot on crises, so maybe you can tell us a little bit your insights on that.
Absolutely. So I think there is a lot to unpack, and there's a lot of nuances that we need to think about and better understand to really have a better picture about this shift that has occurred from T1 to T2. And what we notice as well with respect to this shift is what the women were actually sharing and their perception. And a lot of it had to do with some of the formalization of some of the policies within their companies, and the fact that, policies around work-life balances, whether formally or informally, issues around sexual harassment, something that started, the narrative around it started to shift, which also allowed some of the women's experiences along these dimensions to also shift. But also what is interesting, and if we especially look at it through a crisis lens, is the fact that due to some unresolved crisis that the region has been facing, a lot of organizations obviously did try to adapt their policies and their practices so that they can face these particular the impact of these particular crises. But what is interesting is that how the women did actually respond to that. So in a lot of times, organizations might offer hybrid work arrangements, might allow for some kind of flexibility for working, especially when we note that a lot of the women in the lived experience index mentioned the work-life balance aspect as part of the retention, how there was a significant increase in work-life balance policies. A lot of it could be contributed to how organizations actually responded to crisis, and the fact that work was being able to actually be conducted in a more hybrid or more flexible perspective. There's a better understanding around, women's caregiving duties. There's an adaptation to all of this changing circumstances of who is currently our employees, who are the people that are working across these sectors, and trying the best they can to actually retain them. So there's a lot to unpack there, I would say, Fida.
Yeah, I'm sure a lot. And we touched upon those points yesterday in the breakout room. So I'm sure, those will inspire our participants, to kind of further discuss in the breakout rooms later. So I'm going to leave it to my colleague, Charlotte, to share the video because of better quality and technical mastery.
I am tired of talking about this with no solution. How long should we as women wait before we really have equal opportunities in our careers?
Honestly, where can we find the motivation if there are no appreciation nor recognition? Promotion seems like something we study in books. Despite our efforts, they're elusive.
I totally understand. In STEM, it seems like men effortlessly climb the promotion ladder. Even though that training and development opportunities may be equal, promotion opportunities aren't, which make learning.
It seems that we're having a lot of connection issues. Perhaps someone else, Fida, do you want to try on your end?
Yeah, I will try to share. Let me just not put it in presentation mode. I think it will make it.
Although I'm in Canada, the connection should be better, but it's not.
Yeah, you should come back here. It's great. And so I think if I share it without putting it, it will work.
I am tired of talking about this with no solution. How long should we as women wait before we really have equal opportunities in our careers?
Honestly, where can we find the motivation if there are no appreciation nor recognition? Promotion seems like something we study in books. Despite our efforts, they're elusive.
I totally understand. In STEM, it seems like men effortlessly climb the promotion ladder. Even though that training and development opportunities may be equal, promotion opportunities aren't, which make learning and development opportunities really pointless.
Absolutely. We're all striving for promotions. My boss doesn't mind changing my title, but if it means a salary increase, he prefers to keep the same title. We need every opportunity as women to feel secure about our jobs, and have a voice at work, especially with all the crisis and chaos nowadays.
You're not alone. In my job, promotion feels like an elusive dream. There's no clear career path.
Tell me about it. I've been at my company for 9 years. I was promised a promotion a long time ago, and I still did not get it. This is not just my organization, it's the same across the entire country.
I can't agree more. Working at a bank, I strive for a promotion. If my job doesn't offer me a chance to advance, I won't be satisfied or happy.
We all strive for it, but we can't do it without clear HR policies. Besides, it's not our job, it's the management job.
Well, at least with you, it's a problem with the company's policies. At our organization, promotions happen under the table, disregarding seniority and qualifications. It's frustrating when you work without growing opportunities.
I hear you all. As a teacher, there are no promotions in public schools. Sometimes they re-evaluate your level as a teacher, but that's about it. The only thing that makes me stay is the stable salary that is the same for men and women.
Right. I'm a teacher in a public school too, and I face the same.
Great. I think in the preparation of the videos, we discovered the hidden talent of our team members. So thank you for everyone in the team for putting together these fantastic videos, and also to the communication team for their great work. Now, Charlotte, I'm going to turn it to you to lead us into the final stages of the event.
Thank you so much, Dr. Makedem and Dr. Afuni. Really wonderful. I like to say that the voice, as Fida was saying, the voiceover on the video is our SAWI team, but the what they're saying are direct quotes from the interviews done with the over 900 women. So really trying to elevate and capture what women are actually saying across the region. And we'll certainly share those videos for people to watch if you want to take a closer look. With that, it gives me great pleasure to invite to the stage or onto the Zoom stage our dear colleague and investigator on the SAWI project, Dr. Carmen Jaha. Dr. Carmen Jaha is a senior researcher in migration and gender at Pompeu Fabra University, and she is a founding and managing director of Saltara Consulting. Over to you, Carmen.
Thank you so much, Dr. Karam. I'm really, really happy to be here and to have a chance to speak to everybody that's on the call, as well as the live streaming, to invite you, if you want to share your experience as an individual or a group, if we have employers on the line that want to also contact us because their staff want to share their experience, whether you are a university, you can also be part of this data collection effort that we're doing. And I think it's very empowering that today we're launching a lived experience index based on these 2 waves of data. But the job doesn't end here. If you notice, behind all of us, we describe ourselves as a project of undertaking research in action. So we are continuing this work through the country partners. We have local associations and experts and activists working with us in all of the countries that we have collected data from. So if you're interested to share your individual experience, what that means is that you will be interviewed. Everything will remain confidential, and we anonymize all of the data, so no names will be mentioned. As Dr. Karam said, these are direct quotes from participants in the countries, but we do not refer to people's names and places. If you're interested to share your experience, sign up as an individual or a group, please get in touch with our country partners. The contacts are right there, and you can also receive a copy of those contacts via scanning the QR code and have material to all of the presentation that we did today. And with that, I'd like to thank our fantastic speakers, particularly Dr. Munzer, for reminding us really of such a stark reality still exists. If we want to contextualize, we are celebrating making great strides in terms of the data and knowledge that we have today, but the region's realities are very, very difficult. And that's the context that we are all operating in. So I do hope that we continue this work. We are working with employers in these respective countries on enacting, reforming inclusive workplace policies. So today we are celebrating data and how important knowledge is, but our job doesn't end here. So I want to thank again the speakers, I'd like to thank our fantastic MEPI DC team, particularly Ahmed Gutan, and our MEPI Lebanon team, Maya and David. And I also want to thank all of the administrators and staff, both at University of Ottawa and the American University of Beirut, for supporting us to implement a project that spans across time zones, geographical locations, currencies. We are really working all over the world to make this happen. So thank you for all the support in helping implement day-to-day the work of the Lived Experience Index. We take these testimonials very in a very precious way, and we hope that we can together make a change with employers to start removing these barriers and these obstacles that all of us have faced in our careers. So with this, I'd like to conclude the live streaming segment. So if you're with us on YouTube, thank you for joining. Keep up with us on our social media channels. But for those of you in the room today with us on Zoom, I'll take a moment to ask you, please, if you agree to turn on your cameras. We will take a group picture to commemorate